Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Tasliman kathiran kathira. Amma ba'du. My brothers and sisters, in our series of classes on living Islam, we are looking at marriage, making it and living it. Marriages are not made in heaven, they are made on the earth. And so they require effort. Like anything else which is on this earth, you want it to happen, you want it to be good, you have to make sure that you do what it takes for that to happen. It's not automatic, it's not magic, it's not something that will happen despite your effort. Whatever happens will happen exactly how you wanted to make it happen. It's as simple as that. Now, question number 4. We are looking at the 20 questions that I was asked, and we are looking here at question number 4. How can you try and make an unhappy marriage a happy one? Now, that's a tough one because there is a pre-clause to that. And once you satisfy that pre-clause, then it's very easy. And the pre-clause is, do you really want it to happen? Do you really want to turn your marriage, which is currently on the rocks, to be seaworthy again? Do you really want that ship not to sink? Now that may seem like a strange thing to ask, but I've seen in many years of counseling that all failures that I saw were because the partners did not really want to make it work. They were not sincere. They were merely going through the motions with the idea of satisfying themselves or others that they had made the effort. Now that is a lie because they never made the effort. They acted a drama with a pre-concluded ending. And what happened is what they wanted to happen. So once you are sincere, first of all decide that. And it's not one person. Both people have to be sincere. So once you are sincere about turning things around, then you need to sit down and write down all that you like about your spouse. Think about this. After all, there were things that you liked, and that is why you married them. Why did you marry them otherwise? As I told you, anybody who married somebody in order to change them, believe me, you walked into a disaster with your eyes wide open. Because before you married them with the intention of changing them, did you ask them that they wanted to be changed? Did you have a contract with them to say, marry me and I will change you, and the other person says, yes, please, I want to marry you because I want to change? If that happened, you would not have a problem. But that did not happen. You know that and I know that. So therefore, you married them thinking that you can change them. They married you blind. They didn't realize that they were walking into what is actually a client-consultant relationship without the contract to legitimize it. So it was an illegal client-consultant relationship. And then, of course, what had to happen happened. So please don't fall into this trap. So now that you have got this situation where things are not going the way you liked, sit down and write on both parties. Sit down and write, and literally write with your hand. And there's a reason I'm saying that, because when you write something with your hand, it accesses something in your brain, and there is a psychological reaction. So you must write with, and not even, don't type it out and whatnot, don't dictate it on your phone, unless you physically can't do it. But otherwise, write down with your hand. Write the things that you like or liked about that person, about your spouse, your husband or your wife. Both people do that. And then exchange those papers and read them. This is what I like about you, and so on, so on, so on. Including at that time. Right? Second thing is, flip the paper over and write down on the other side, what do you expect from them? So this is what I expect you to do for me. I expect you to massage my head every night. I expect you to make me a hot breakfast every morning. I expect you to stand up every time I enter the room. I expect you to walk up the wall and across the ceiling, right? I mean, if you are expecting these things, then you better expect that as well. Write down what you expect from the other person. And as I am saying, don't get over ambitious about this. Don't get unrealistic about it. Get real, be real. So write down what are the things that you expect from the other person. And then exchange those sheets. Marriages go bad because we start taking the good stuff for granted as if it's your birthright, and you are never thankful for it. You don't express thanks, and you are unclear about expectations. So usually this works like magic. I've seen many cases where after I told people, I would tell them, I said, please write out all this and bring it to me. They never come back. And the marriage is going great guns after that. And we say, what happened? They say, oh, you know what, once we wrote this thing out, it became clear to us, alhamdulillah, we are doing well. Alhamdulillah, very nice. Saves my time as well. But it will happen only if you sincerely do it, not if you go through the motions. That's the thing I want to say to you again and again and again and again. Just going through the motions of the thing is not going to help you. You must be and you have to be sincere about it. Then it will work. What did you like about, or what do you like about the person, and what are the expectations? Most marriages go by because we are not thankful for what the person does for us every day. Think about this. You know, if you go to somebody's house, if you are a guest with somebody and that person is good to you, if those people are good to you, you go stay with them a couple of days, and you will come back full of praise. You say, oh my God, you know, they treated me so well and they cooked good food for us and they did this and did that and they make sure we are comfortable and whatnot. Turn around and ask yourself, my wife does that every day for me. My husband does that every day for me. My husband goes through the rain and sleet and snow, drives to work, and works in a job that he probably, is not over the top, over the moon about that job. Maybe he doesn't even like that job too much. I know several people who do jobs not because they like the job, but because they have a family to feed. So they put up with a job which they don't really like. They work for a boss that they don't really like. And they don't do it for 2 days. They do it for 40 years. They do it for 30 years. Day in and day out. So that they can put food on the table. So that they can pay your bills. Now what's the appreciation for that? What is the appreciation for that? Let me ask my sisters very clearly, when was the last time you said to your husband, Jazakallahu khairan, thank you very much for going to work every day so that we have food on our table? And don't give me the thing about, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feeds. Of course He feeds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feeds you. And Allah will feed you even if your husband drops dead tomorrow morning. Right? We're talking about being thankful to the person while the person is alive. That does not deny what Allah is giving you. Rasulullah said in this very famous hadith, he said, he has not thanked Allah who has not thanked the person, the human being. So did you thank your husband? To say, you go to work every day, I know the kind of job you do, I know you don't love it, I know it's, you would love to change it, but it's difficult to change. I know you don't love your boss, but you do that because you love me, because you come, you want to put food on the table in the home, you want to pay our bills, you want us to live comfortably. And so you're doing that. Jazakallahu khairan, thank you very much. Then did you fall in sujood and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gave you a man like that? And the same thing to the husbands. Did you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you come home every day to a house which is neat and clean, doesn't look like a pigsty, doesn't look like a trash dump? Do you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that there is food on the table? You put the money for the food on the table. The actual food on the table is somebody else is putting in. That somebody else is your wife. Right? My brothers and sisters, believe me, if we just learn to be grateful, our life will turn completely around. Just learn to be grateful. Sometimes people ask me, well, why must I keep on saying and thank you? Why must I keep on saying I'm grateful? Don't they know? My question to you is, doesn't Allah know? Yeah? Doesn't your wife know? Yes. Doesn't your husband know? Yes. But doesn't Allah know? If Allah knows, and you know that Allah knows, then why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِدَنَّكُمْ وَلَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. In Surah Ibrahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, verily the one who is thankful to me, I will increase the blessing, and the one who is thankless, let him beware of my punishment. Why did Allah say that? Because He doesn't know? Allah needs you to tell Him? The issue is not whether the other person knows or doesn't know. The issue is, it is your job to be thankful. It is your job to say thank you. It is about you. It's not about them. So whether they know or they don't know, it is your job to say it to them. I've told this story many times, but it's a good story, so let me tell you again. I was teaching a course in Chennai for GE. It was a leadership course. I was teaching that two-day leadership course in Chennai. Now, my usual thing when I teach these courses and so on and so forth is, because we talk about core values and ethics and so on, so I always talk about being thankful. I mean, this is something that I always do. So in this course, towards the end of day one, I said to the people, I asked them one question. And the question was based on the fact that whole lot, the entire class, which was about 20, 22, 23 people, they were all what we call Tambrams. They were Tamilian Brahmins. Now, I speak Tamil fluently. I've lived in Chennai for 10 years. I mean, not Chennai, but in Tamil Nadu for 10 years. So I know the culture. Now, in the Tamilian culture, and especially Tamilian Brahmin culture, the morning begins for the lady of the house earlier than for the men. So she wakes up, she has a bath, she goes into the kitchen, she does her puja and so on, she does her worship, and then she goes into the kitchen and she makes coffee. Now, it's the best coffee in the world. It's freshly roasted beans, and it is what is called decoction coffee. It's filter coffee, and it is absolutely phenomenal, beautiful coffee. By then, the men of the house, which will be anybody from age 5 to age 95, they wake up and they sit. If there is a veranda, they'll sit there. If there is a balcony, they'll sit there. Otherwise, they sit in the living rooms or whatnot. And this lady of the house, whoever she is, mother, sister, wife, she serves them this coffee, and they drink this coffee and they read the Hindu newspaper. This is the standard practice in practically every single Tamilian Brahmin home. We call them Tambrams. So knowing this culture, I asked them a question. I said, tell me, is this something which happens in you? I described this very quickly. I said, does this happen in your house? They said, yes. So I said, what if one day you wake up and there's no coffee? They said, it was an unthinkable thing for them. My God, no coffee in the morning. So I said, it is something you appreciate. Is this something you really? Absolutely, we really appreciate this. It is, absolutely intrinsic and an absolutely critically important part of our lives, and there's no way that we can exist without this coffee. I said, fantastic. Now tell me, how many of you thanked that lady, whether it's your daughter, whether it's your sister, whether it's your mother, whether it's your wife? How many of you thank that lady for giving you this coffee every single day of your life? Now, they were honest people, so there was dead silence. Then one of them who was sitting in the front, who was maybe my age, maybe a little bit younger, but meaning he was not a youngster, he started sort of very smiling in a very marked way. So I said to him, have I made a joke or something? Do you want to share with us what's so funny? He said, no, I am not laughing at you. He said, I am laughing because if I thank my wife, she will die of shock. So I said, let her die a happy woman. Please thank her. Now, this incident ended. End of day one, they went home. The following morning, I always go to class at least 15 minutes early. And I set up my stuff and so on and so forth. And so I am in the class, I am there earlier. One of the youngsters, he comes first and he tells me, he greets me and then he says to me, my mother said to me to thank you. I said, it's strange, your mother told you to thank me? He said, yes, my mother told me to thank you. I said, for what? I don't know your mother, right? And you are supposed to thank me for what? So now he looked a bit sheepish. He said, sir, yesterday after listening to you, I went home. And when I went home, I thanked my mother. I said, Amma, thank you so much for making me this coffee every morning. He said, funnily, my mother's instant reaction was, who told you to say that? So he said, I tried to pass it off and I said, no, I realized I have never thanked you. She said, no, don't give me all this. He said, I know you. I know you. Who told you to thank me? So he said, our teacher said this, and he told the story. The mother says, tomorrow morning when you go, first thing, please thank your teacher for pointing out this thing to you. So we both had a good laugh. But that's my point to you. How many of you thank the people? Here we are talking about the spouses, but let's expand that. How many of you thank your children? How many of you thank your parents? How many of you thank your servants? Those of you who have servants. Your drivers and your cooks and your waiters and your butlers and your bearers and whoever is there to serve you. We are very ungrateful. This is the whole problem. We don't thank Allah and we don't thank the people. And that's why we have problems. So in the marriage, make sure you thank your husband or your wife. I often ask couples, how many times a day do you thank your husband and wife? How many times a day do you hug your husband, you hug your wife? How many times a day do you kiss them? I'm not saying routinely, where I'm going to work, I kiss my wife and pat on the cheek. Genuinely out of love, genuinely to show your appreciation, to show your thankfulness. Thank you for being in my life. How many times a day do you hug your wife? How many times a day do you hug your husband? How many times a day do you kiss your wife? How many times a day do you kiss your husband? How many times a day do you tell them that you love them? Again, as I told you, it's not a question of saying, why should I say it? No. You should say it, because I gave you the example of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not about whether they know or not. It's about whether you express what's in your heart. They may know, but they can't see in your heart. They can't look inside your heart. We take service for granted. We don't appreciate. For a lot of people, not criticizing is equal to appreciation. It is not. People have told me this. They say, "Oh, but I've never said anything wrong." No. Sorry. Expressing genuine appreciation is about being thankful to the other person for what they have done for you. As I mentioned to you, Rasulullah said, he has not thanked Allah, the one who has not thanked the people. Thankfulness, clearly expressed, is the lifeblood of a marriage. And do it often. Do it often. Not once when the pyramids were being built. Do it often. And think about this. If things are not going well, if there is a problem, how many of us hesitate to say what it is? How many of us say, no, why should I criticize? We don't, right? We criticize very freely. This is wrong, that is wrong. Food comes on the table. Oh, there's too much salt, there's too little salt. Who cooked this food? You know who cooked the food. Rasulullah never ever criticized food. Never. If he didn't like something, he did not eat it. He ate less of it, or he did not eat it at all. But he never criticized food. He never criticized cooking. He never criticized the food. He never said, I don't like the food. These may seem like small things, but they're not. You know, every time if I'm eating and I don't like something, you know what I tell myself? I tell myself that who is giving me this food? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if I'm criticizing the food, I'm saying to Allah, Ya Allah, I don't like what you gave me. So my focus is on what? It's not on who gave me, it's on what I got. Now how disgusting is that? And to explain that to you, let me tell you another story. This story is about the king Mahmud of Ghazni, Mahmud Ghaznavi, and his slave Ayaz. Mahmud Ghaznavi and Ayaz. And the story is that one day Mahmud Ghaznavi was sitting one evening on the terrace of his palace in the Ghazni, and Ayaz was sitting at his feet. And Mahmud Ghaznavi he had a cucumber which he was cutting, and they were talking, the two of them were talking. Mahmud Ghaznavi and his slave Ayaz, they were also very, very close and dear friends. They were very, very close to each other. And Ayaz was a very wise man, so Mahmud used to ask his advice for various things. So they're having this conversation, and during the conversation, Mahmud Ghaznavi, obviously he wanted to eat this cucumber, but while he's talking, so he kept cutting pieces of it and giving them to Ayaz. And Ayaz would take the piece and he would eat it. Now this whole thing continued until there was only one last slice of this cucumber which was left. And Mahmud put this into his mouth. Now, as you know, cucumbers, sometimes some of them are extremely bitter. They're like poison. And this one was like that. So when Mahmud put that thing when they put the slice of cucumber in his mouth and bit on it, he immediately spat it out and he said, Astaghfirullah, la hawla quwwata illa billah. What kind of thing is this? He said, this thing is like poison. It's so bitter. And then he turned to Ayaz and he said, for God's sake, I was giving you this thing, slice after slice after slice, and you kept eating it. And you did not complain. You could have told me this thing is bitter. You didn't complain. Why? I said to him, my master, I was so conscious of and so overawed by and so appreciative of the fact that I am getting something from the hand of the king, that to me that thing has no meaning. The very fact that the one giving it to me is my master, is the monarch, is the king, that was such a wonderful thing for me, that whether that thing was bitter or not bitter makes no difference to me. He said, in any case, I got so many things from you, so many beautiful, wonderful things from you. What is one cucumber? SubhanAllah, I think about this and I say, what is our attitude with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regard to this? It's a bit of an aside, but really speaking, think about that. And to bring it back into the logic of the marriage, how much of goodness we get from our spouses. And that's why I said, write it down. Write it down. You know, when my father was alive, my mother was a very unemotional person, so she didn't do these things. But my father, while he was alive, obviously while he was alive, I mean, he couldn't have done this when he was dead, but whenever, I mean, I travel a lot. I mean, not these last 2 years thanks to COVID, I'm sitting in one place, but in Hyderabad, I would travel, at least 4 international trips annually, and internally within India, many trips, business trips, trips to wildlife sanctuaries for my photography and so on and so forth. Every time I traveled, my father would ask me, when are you coming back? And then the standard rule was, when you reach where you're going, phone and let me know. And when I got back home, he would expect me to call him. And if I didn't call him, then he would call and he would say, what happened? You were supposed to come, your flight was supposed to come at 5 o'clock. What happened? I would tell him, no, this flight got delayed or whatever it was. Right? Now, sometimes I would feel that, I don't say nuisance, but it was this thing, I've got to report to him and so on. Alhamdulillah, we were never brought up in a way where we resented that, or we felt that, after all, I'm 40 years old, I'm 50 years old, why must I tell my father where I'm going? All that never occurred in our minds, alhamdulillah. But definitely, they think, okay, I've got to tell him and so on. But subhanAllah, let me tell you, when he died, the first thing that hit me was, now nobody cares. Huh? Now nobody cares. When I came back, of course my wife is there and she would be concerned, but it so happened at that time that she was also traveling. She was with her parents in the UK. And there was this period when my wife was not there, I was alone, and my father had passed away. As I told you, my mom, obviously my mother cared, but it was not her way. I mean, she wouldn't call and whatnot. And the thought in my mind was, subhanAllah, now I don't have to tell anyone. I do not have to tell anyone because nobody cares. Don't wait for that day. Don't wait for the day when your husband is dead or your wife is dead. And then you realize that this person, while they were there, yeah, sure, there was some nuisance, whatnot. I mean, the guy is a human being. You didn't marry an angel, right? You married a human being. Human beings make mistakes. Human beings forget. Human beings are irritable. Human beings are irritating. But that's what it is. And go look in the mirror. Because you also are a human. You also forget. You also make mistakes. You're also very irritating. And you're also irritable. So what? Please learn to forgive, learn to express gratitude. How can you make a bad marriage good? By this, by learning to forgive and by learning to express gratitude. How do you learn to forgive? By understanding that you also need forgiveness. How do you express gratitude? By understanding that we also need gratitude, that we enjoy it. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to open our hearts and minds to these things, which are the beautiful principles of Islam, and to enable us to make our marriages into beautiful associations, a beautiful friendship that adds value to us every single day. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.